Hi everyone, Cardfight community here with a deck profile. We have the Royal Paladin Stride deck, or the Altmile deck, however you want to call it. This deck is made with nothing but cards from the new Generation Stride booster set, as well as the new Royal Paladin trial deck that has a few of the new Stride cards featured in it. So yeah, let's get into the deck profile. For the starting Vanguard, I run Shining Knight Milius. This card's pretty good. You know, it's got the Forerunner ability, which pretty much everything has now. You know, it moves to a rearguard circle, and then for a counterblast, once you have Generation Break 1, you can add it to your soul and go get any grade 2 from your deck and call it. So essentially, after you get Generation Break 1, for a counterblast, this turns into any grade 2 from your deck, which is pretty good. So for triggers, I run 4 draw triggers and 4 Margle. Margle's really good because it's got the extra ability that you can put it into the soul and give something an extra 3,000 power, so it might be good late game if you're trying to push your opponent. Your opponent's at 4 or 5 damage and you really want to get one of your rows above an extra power notch so that you make them have to guard for, you know, an extra amount of shield. So this can really push some of your rows to the next level. Then we run 4 critical trigger, the Burning Mane Lion. It comes in the Royal Paladin trial deck. Next we run another 4 critical triggers. This is the Knight of Flash, and it comes in the Generation Stride booster. And finally we run the 4 heal triggers. Healing Pegasus also comes in the trial deck. So that's the trigger lineup. On to the grade 1s. I run 4 of these new perfect guards. That's you can only use these to guard against attacks on the Vanguard, but if you have a copy of it in your grave, when you use it, you can unflip a damage, so that's pretty nice, since you can sometimes use quite a bit of counterblasts in this deck, so this can help you. If you do use some early game counterblasts, then in the late game you're able to unflip that damage and reuse it. Next we run 2 Archer of Heaven's Tower. It's a 10k attacker when it attacks the Vanguard and you have Generation Break 1. Personally, I actually think that this card is a little bit better. It's called Knight of Flash or Knight of Shield Bash. So this can, whenever it attacks a Vanguard, it gets plus 2,000 power. So you don't have to have Generation Break 1, and this will be attacking for 9,000 at the Vanguard, while this is only attacking for 10,000, so, you know, you have to wait until both players are at grade 3 to even be able to use this ability, so, you know, as far as rushing your opponent and trying to get early damage off, this really won't be very helpful late in the game anyway, since it's still just a 10k attacker. It still needs a boost to hit most Vanguards, because pretty much everyone runs 11k anyways. So, yeah, and this will be a 9k with a 7k boost behind it. It's still a 16k column, so I just think this is better for early game, and even late game, it's still not really at a disadvantage. The only way it's better is if you call a 6k behind this, which the only 6ks I run is the Perfect Guard, and I very rarely find myself calling that. So next, there are 4 Gigantic Shot Putters. This is an interesting new ability. It's got Generation Break 1, you can counterblast 1, retire this unit, and choose up to 2 of your other units, and they get plus 5,000 power until the end of the turn. So this can be good late game also if you're trying to push your opponents while they're, you know, at 4 or 5 damage, whatever it is, and you really want to you know, drain the shield out of their hand, put a lot more pressure on them. If you have the counterblast to spare, you don't really need to boost. You can just kind of call this, pay a counterblast, send it to the grave, and give an extra 5,000 some to 2 units. So that's nice for pushing late game as well. and it's also a 7k booster, which isn't bad. And then also the last grade 1 is 4 of Laurel Knight Sicolas. This guy is just really good. Pretty much every Stride deck is going to have some version of this, where you call this guy, and you can reveal a grade 3 and search out Altmile, add it to your hand, discard a card from your hand. So really good at staying consistent with riding the grade 3 that you want. This is also good for discarding it as a grade 3 for Stride. You don't have to discard a whole lot of extra cards. You can just discard him for Stride, and that'll pay for the whole cost. And he's also a 7k booster, so that's really good as well. On to the grade 2s. I run 3 of Knight of Fragment. This card's got a pretty decent ability. It's got Generation Break 1, and during your turn, if you have 2 or more grade 2 rear guards, so say you have this and any other grade 2, then you'll get this ability where it will get an extra 2,000 power, so it'll be 11,000. So he can hit some Vanguards without a boost if necessary. And then he also gets this extra ability that, if he hits a Vanguard, you can unflip a damage and soul charge one. So I find that I don't use this ability too often, but the extra 2,000 power is pretty nice, and just kind of putting that pressure on your opponent that if it hits you can unflip is kind of nice as well. Next, play 4 Transmigration Knight Braid. This is the 12k attacker for the deck. He gets an extra plus 3,000 power whenever he attacks a Vanguard if you have Generation Break 1. So it's pretty nice, since you do a lot of grade 2 calling in this deck, to just be able to call something and not have to have a boost and be able to hit. So that's why he's pretty useful, as well as Knight of Fragment, in order to hit those 11k Vanguards without a boost. And the last grade 2, I run 4 Knight of Twin Sword. This card's pretty good. You can get off a lot of attacks in one turn because of this guy, and especially if you combo it with one of the grade 4s that you can stride into. His ability is Generation Break 1. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if he's boosted, you can pay the cost of Counterblast 1, and if you do, you can search your deck for a grade 2 that's not named Knight of Twin Sword, and you can call it to a rearguard circle. And it doesn't have to be an open rearguard circle. You can call this, say you have a rearguard here, you've attacked with it, you've got him here, and he's boosted, you attack, pay the cost, and you can call another one of these or a Knight of Fragment from your deck on top of this, which would retire the other one, so you'll get an extra attack. So he's pretty nice. There's lots of good cards in here that can help you push for late game. You can get off multiple attacks, 4, sometimes 5 attacks, if you can combo this right in this deck. So very useful card. Next, I play 4 of Militaristic Knight Marinus. So he's an okay card. He's a nice little backup Vanguard if you don't get Altmile. He's got a pretty decent ability. Generation Break 1, you can Counterblast 1, and Soul Blast 1 when he attacks a Vanguard. If you pay the cost, then you can search your deck for up to one grade 2 card and call it. So kind of similar to Knight of Twin Sword, it doesn't have to be an open rearguard circle. You can just call it on top of something and get an extra attack off if you want. And he's also got this other ability that when you ride him when he's placed on the Vanguard circle, you can Soul Blast 1 and then call up to 1 card from your hand and then choose one of your units, and it gets plus 5,000 power till the end of the turn. So an extra plus 5,000 for a Soul Blast. It's not bad. Nice little backup Vanguard, but the main guy that we run here is 4 Blue Sky Knight Altmile. This is the guy that you'd want to ride as grade 3. He's pretty good. He's got the Generation Break 2 ability that, if you have Generation Break 2 during your turn, all of your units in your front row get plus 5,000 power, which means if you have 2 rear guards in the front row, and then himself. That's a total of an extra 15,000 power. This is very good for pushing on your opponent for late game. This deck is very offensive in that way. And then it's also got the ability that when you stride on top of this card, you can counterblast 1. If you do, you can call up to 2 cards from your hand to separate rearguard circles, and then choose up to 2 of your units, and they get plus 5,000 power until the end of the turn. So, just another way to get even more power for 1 counterblast. That's not bad, an extra 10,000 power total. So yeah, those are the grade 3s. And moving on to the the G units, Generation Zone units. Play 4 of the Shrouded Divine Knight Gablade. This guy's pretty good. When you stride him on top of one of your grade 3s, he'll be at 26,000 power. He's got the triple drive, of course, as all grade 3s or all grade 4s do. And he's got an on-hit ability. When his attack hits a Vanguard, you can search your deck for up to 1 grade 2 or greater card, and then call it to a rear guard circle and shuffle your deck. So again, it doesn't have to be an open rear guard circle. You can call it on top of something that might have already attacked, so you can get an extra attack off if you want to. So he's pretty good. He can put a lot of pressure on your opponent. They really don't want him to hit, because it'll let you call extra things to the field. And then I run 4 of the Holy Dragon Saint Blow Dragon. So yeah, it's kind of a little redundant. It's got dragon in its name twice, but it's a really good card. Its ability is, it's an act ability. You can choose a face down card named Holy Dragon Saint Blow Dragon and flip it face up from your G zone. So you have to choose one that's face down, flip it face up. And then this unit gets plus 3,000 power for each of your rear guards until the end of the turn. And if the number of rear guards, if the number of face-up cards in your G zone, your generation zone, is 2 or more, so you'd want to use his ability. He would want to be the second thing that you ride. You typically always want to ride Gablade first. If it's 2 or more, then, and the number of rear guards you have is 2 or more, so if you have 2 or more rear guards as well, then he gets an extra critical. And you can only use this ability once per turn, so you can't just keep flipping him up to get more and more power. But say you have a full field of rear guards, he would get an extra 15,000 power as well as an extra critical, so he'd be at 41,000 power without a boost and an extra critical. So if your opponent's at 4 damage, 4 or 5 damage even, and they don't have a perfect guard, it's not going to be looking good for them. But yeah, he's a very good finisher for this deck. So yeah, that's the deck profile. So there will be more deck profiles to come. If you want to see this deck in action, you can find it. You can find it in some of the match videos on the Cardfight community channel. So yeah, please rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks, guys.